Could I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening, and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board meeting for Thursday, September 6, 2012. Before we get started tonight, I just have one announcement to make. I'd like to welcome our new planning board member to the board this evening, Mr. Joe Boyle, that has been appointed by our city manager for a 5-year term. And Joe has worked with the Division of Planning and Development in the past as a neighborhood planner, and we welcome him and look forward to his expertise on the board. Good luck, Joe. We wish you well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so moving along, we have 2 public hearings today. One is a definitive subdivision, and the other one is rezoning quest. So the first matter is a definitive subdivision plan for approval on 206/208 Trotting Park Road. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing regarding an application by Alice Draper for approval of a definitive subdivision plan of 86,227 square feet of property located amongst 2 existing lots at 206 Trotting Park Road and 208 Trotting Park Road. The project proposes to create an additional single-family buildable lot with 11,085 square feet of land. The existing lot will be configured to accommodate the new lot on 206 Trotting Park Road, reduced to 33,094 square feet, and 208 Trotting Park Road reduced to 27,045 square feet. The proposal includes a new private way to access all 3 lots from Trotting Park Road, measuring approximately 280 feet in length and 20 feet in width. The site is located in a suburban, single-family zoning district. And we're here for the applicant, please.
Right here. We've submitted these plans before for approval, and there was some issues, I guess, some concerns with different, the driveway and drainage and everything else. So Ron has addressed some of those concerns, so.
Okay. You want to turn over to Mr. Close for the record, if you could, just give us your name and address for the record, and...
Yes, my name is Ron Close, C-L-O-S-E. I'm a registered professional engineer, state of Massachusetts. I represent the Drapers on this project, and good evening. With that, let me just go over some past data. That is, these have been supplied to the planning board on a number of different occasions. We met with the Department of Planning and Development and your engineering department, followed most of their directives as far as I can see, and updated the plan to accommodate their directives, trying to fit within reason with all of the City of Lowell standards, construction standards, and design. Okay, I just received the comments from the engineering department, and there's a couple of issues that I'd like to clarify. One is we did provide, the main thing I think with engineering is the stormwater calculations. What I did was an addendum change to the original, and we didn't provide the whole package because most of that data is redundant, but I can see that she wants it in one package. But what we did is we made the calculations based on the runoff, and tried to accommodate the site with, after discussing it with the Department of Planning, Development, and Engineering, and tried to accommodate the drainage by using the new porous pavement, not new, but the updated construction standards as far as using the porous pavement. So we got rid of, on our original design, we had 2 trenches on either side of the roadway, and the pavement itself was porous at that time, and the idea was to allow the water to drain down into the trenches, accommodated the size of the storms with the amount of stone underneath the pavement. After review, engineering and/or DPD requested that we remove the stone swales on either side of the porous pavement, more with concerns for structural integrity of existing telephone poles, etc., and it really wasn't needed if we had the porous pavement with the stone underneath. So we tried to give you the Cadillac, and after discussion, there were some concerns on, as I said, the structural integrity, and we thought a better way to revise the plan, which we did. You've already discussed that it is an addition of one more home. It's becoming a family compound, so to speak, with all three of the family members would live in one area with one additional house added, so for a total of 3 houses. There's plenty of area. We accommodated the frontage by using your new standards, and I believe after discussion with DPD, we were allowed to ask for a waiver on one lot frontage for 40 feet instead of 90 in these type of conditions, which is the utilizing a private street, which the abutters and/or the owners, the current owners and the new, whoever the abutter would be, which is Mrs. Draper, I believe, would be the new house. So the 3 family members would indulge in the maintenance of that road. The city would not have to do any maintenance in it. So we believe we accommodated, except for, like I say, there's some concerns from engineering, but I think all we have to do is provide the updated calculations, which show that the project would work as far as stormwater runoff. No additional stormwater would be added to any abutting properties and/or the street. Nothing more than it exists, and that is a standard for today's City of Lowell construction standard. 0% increase in runoff. In order to accommodate that, as I said, we put in I think it's a foot of stone, without looking at the plans, excuse me. Yes, the plan and profile, sheet 4, would show the stone beneath the porous pavement. Three inches of porous pavement with a foot of stone under, which I feel is adequate to handle that runoff and not increase any additional water in the area. Engineering refers to a detention pond. I think they were referring back to the original proposal, which was to put in a city standard street with the accommodating with catch basins and the detention pond in the rear of the property. As I said, after many discussions with the Department of Planning and Development and engineering, we finalized it as far as design is concerned with the porous pavement and the stone underneath, not requiring a lot of maintenance except for sweeping and/or each of the buildings would be provided with a dry well, which is a leaching pit, to accommodate their roof drainage. So even that factor was taken out. That used to run down the street. It would now be removed from the driveway area by percolating it into the ground. And as engineering made a comment that they couldn't see where it was, I think they must be looking at a different set of plans, maybe the first set of plans, because on sheet 2, building number 208, as you're looking at it, would be on the, I believe it's
To the left of the house.
right, northeasterly side of the house. I'm sorry, yeah. Yes, northeasterly side of the house, also building, the new proposed building, it's, if you're looking up the street, it's on the right-hand side, just to make it nice and easy and related to the plan. It's on the right-hand side of the house, and building number 206, it's on the left-hand side of the house. So we did show all the locations of those leaching pits. And by the way, those are the standard Caltech number 2, R280 roof drain system. That's what they're designed for, to accommodate roof drainage. So what I'm saying is the 2 existing buildings have been removed as far as a runoff from the street area. The new building, the roof drainage would be removed, would not add any more to it because it has a Caltech system too. So we've, right from the start, we've reduced runoff in that area. The width of the street at current is approximately 18 feet. We're only adding 2 more feet, and it's porous pavement. It's not standard pavement. And with that, I'll accommodate any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak in regards to this application? Anyone else want to speak? Any comments in favor or against, or anybody else want to speak on the matter?
We're in favor.
Okay. If you just want to come up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, so we'll have it on the record if you would, please.
Sure.
Just give us your name and address if you would.
Peter and Katie Souza, 40 Boylston Street in Lowell, and we would actually like to purchase their house so they can build the other house. So we are definitely in favor.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in regards to this application? Can I make a comment or anything?
Yes, my name is Ray Silver. I'm Alice's brother, and I'm just here to support her in this whole thing. This has been a couple of, as you know, with your records in front of you, this has been a couple of years in the making. She's been working diligently at this to try to accommodate the city, and I just think for the entire family situation, it would be good. She's spoken to her neighbors. They do the letters and all that stuff. Everybody gets the letters, but everybody seems to support her and her cause. So I think those things should be taken into consideration also, and I thank you for your consideration and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to make a comment or anything else? Anybody else? No one else coming forward? At this point in time, I'll turn it over to any questions and comments of any of the planning board members. Mr. Vishek, can I start with you if you don't mind?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The, looking at the plans and the engineers, city engineers' comments, and the report that we received was dated today, September 6th. So I'm just a little concerned, Mr. Close, regarding some of the comments, and I've indicated that it, some of it has been addressed, so I don't know if there's a disconnect between what the engineering department has reviewed and what you're stating. So certainly I would want to have the engineering department have a final review of your submission. Also, on the porous pavement, there needs to be some sort of a maintenance program, and that has to be adhered to, because as you know, over time, the effectiveness of the porous pavement, if it's not properly maintained, won't function properly. So, and understanding based on what's been submitted, we don't have anything at the moment.
If this gets approved, obviously would would get that all arranged.
That would be part of, right.
Do I have a set of the submitted calcs?
Yes, I do.
I believe we indicated that on
On the plan, it says
the
that,
operation and maintenance manual.
yeah, I mean, on the plan, what I see is maintenance personnel to be identified, so I just, obviously, that's an important part of having the porous pavement.
Yeah, I haven't proceeded with that, just I'm waiting to see if we get approved, and then
Right.
I'll set that all up.
On the submittal of the calculations and maintenance and operation manual, the front page of that states contact person Alice Draper with a telephone number. So I'm not really sure exactly what engineering was looking. They may be, because they referred to a detention area.
Right.
In their letter, let me just read it quickly. Okay, report mentions a retention pond and catch basins that are not on the plans.
Right.
That was a set of plans from years past. We started this approximately 2 years ago.
4.5.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was the first proposal. I'm not really sure what they're looking at anymore.
Well, that's
All
why
I
I'm
know-
concerned, because then they obviously haven't given us comments based on what's in front of us, so I'm
Right, what I'm
concerned
saying is,
about that. so.
we submitted, it wasn't anything on our part, I believe.
understand.
Because we submitted these plans to
Okay.
the Department of Planning and Development a number of months back. I'm not really sure.
Okay, Aaron, shed any light on that?
Hard copy plans, or the stormwater calculations, stormwater plan submitted with the application. As a part of typical practice now, we request that there's a PDF digital copy so that we can send around to other departments for a review. The digital copy that we received is not the same as what was submitted in hard copy. It's a selection of it, maybe a third or a quarter of the full document, and references different things that don't seem to be aligned with this. For instance, the hydrological model points to, it identifies a pond.
Right.
The narrative in the report just indicates that the pond is not a detention pond. It's just that's what's being used in the model to describe where the water's going and how much and at what rate. So I think that's where part of this disconnect is happening, is that there's a hard copy that's the complete, then there's the digital copy that was submitted and sent to the city engineer for review. That's why you have in
And
your
Mr.
comments.
Close, you would have requested the electronic copy from Mr.
Yes,
Close?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's also why that the comments from the city engineer state that, they're incomplete.
Right.
Because there's only a small piece. The other piece that you'll notice on the comments from the engineer is that there's no stamp. That's because they're digital copy. We do have the original copies that are stamped by both the surveyor and the civil engineer, but that's part of the digital copy we have in this case was printed from a CAD program rather than signed, stamped, and PDF.
Okay. All right, and Aaron, actually, and if you could clarify something else for me, because looking at the plan on one of the lots, we're looking apparently for a waiver of the frontage to 40 feet. But I guess under the SSF zone, the frontage is 90 feet, and then we can approve frontage for 15 feet shorter to 75 feet. If I do my calc for the other lot as well, that looks like it's 62 feet. So I think both lots would need,
So there's actually, there's a little bit of nuance to it. So the waiver actually has nothing to do with subdivision.
okay,
The subdivision approval. It's the special permits reduced frontage. There's actually two for the suburban single-family district. Special permits that the planning board can consider, or that can be requested in the planning board. One is the one that you just mentioned that was a recent amendment to the zoning code and affects all zoning districts in the city, which, in effect, all frontage requirements were increased by 15 feet. However, allowing a reduction of 15 feet through special permit planning board. The other one is in the suburban single-family district, where someone can request a reduction in frontage in just the SSF district where properties or lots have 20,000 square feet or more.
okay, all right, and that's what I was, yep.
That's where this one came in. We had discussions in the past over time with the applicant and with Ron about, how they would need to meet the frontage. And there's one property, it's the one that in the comments that Joe had prepared, that actually there needs to be a special permit sought and approved for that.
Under the waiver being sought for lots exceeding 20,000 square
Correct.
feet, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's actually, I think it's actually less than 75 feet. The other lot, however, is an existing non-conforming, and it's no less non-conforming.
That's why it's, okay, all right, okay. Okay, got that, thank you for that clarification. Certainly, in looking at the project and looking at, actually that particular road, Trotting Park Road, because, if this was a subdivision submittal, obviously, I think, this is, to be honest with you, the type of development we don't like to see behind other homes. Having said that, this isn't unique to Trotting Park Road. There are some other homes that are situated in this manner, and we actually have 2 existing homes that are situated that way. Clearly, you have lots that are larger than most lots in the city of Lowell, 33,000 square feet, 27,000 square feet. And the new lot that you're developing is a little over 11,000 square feet, where the minimum is 10,000 in the neighborhood. So certainly, when I, taking into account all of that, and it's set back, so it really doesn't affect the streetscape of that area, and it is treed, I certainly, in this particular instance, I can certainly go along with what's being proposed here. But, I want to preface those remarks because this isn't what we're encouraging as far as the type of development, but certainly I think in this particular area, it's something that I think certainly can fit in. I do have concerns regarding the engineering. I think anything that we would approve here this evening, and I can't speak for my colleagues, but certainly that would have to be cleared up. But certainly as proposed, for the reasons that I've mentioned. Now, I understand the maintenance of the roadway, plowing, and everything. You'll have to have an agreement, homeowners agreement, because the concern is, it's one thing when it's family members, and Mr. Close, referenced the family compound, and, hopefully everybody's getting along and it works fine. But if one home is sold, then there has to be something in place that's going to carry, that's going to be the driving forces to how all of this will happen. Because if you end up with a situation where we have 3 homes back there and, the families aren't getting along, and then how does it get maintained? And it's not to be maintained by the city. There's got to be legal documents in place to make sure that it's enforceable, whatever is the maintenance program that's in
Sure, that
place.
would be all taken
That's
care of,
that's
if we
critical.
get
To
approved.
be honest with you, that's critical for the value of the properties, because that can be a problem.
Oh,
So
yeah.
certainly that is something that is important in this. So those are all my comments at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich, any questions, comments?
I have a comment first about, I found the plans very difficult to interpret and read. Got an awful lot of information here. And I note the city engineer had made the same comments, that the plans were difficult to interpret. And having said that, I have to concur with Mr. Frischette about the city engineer's comments. This would definitely have to have a final review from her. There's a number of things here, quite a long list, that need approval and clarification. But I, too, don't have a major problem with what I see in terms of, plans and new homes. I don't think I fully understand your drainage plan and the improvements to the new roadway. Could you go through those in a little detail again?
Yes, sir.
Just to explain what you're proposing?
Okay, I'll start with the existing structures, which at this point, there is an existing driveway, it's paved, making it impervious. So any runoff from the site is graded towards Trotting Park Road by way of the driveway or private road, as however you want to look at it. So all that runoff at the current time, roof drainage included, runs down the street. The first thing that I did was remove the roof drainage, existing roof drainage. So that automatically reduces the runoff to Trotting Park Road. The only thing that could happen is an additional 5 feet of paving in the street increases runoff. But the calculations show that that there is no increase in runoff to Trotting Park Road. That is what I provided in the package. So 2 houses were removed by the plan, and the proposed house, which that roof drainage would have run down into the street. That is also provided with what we call the Caltech system, R280, subsurface.
That's right on the lot. as
Yes,
opposed
each
to
of the
ground.
houses abutting the house has a R280 runoff, check that, 2 R280 chambers, subsurface chambers beneath the ground with stone around it. And using the AutoCAD system, HydroCAD system, I'm sorry, the HydroCAD system, we find out what the runoff, what the total runoff for the area is prior to construction. Now, that is a figure that we try to meet. It's nice to reduce it, but the law states that you can't go any more. So what we did is accommodate the site by reducing it down to a point that there is no additional runoff, even by adding the 5 feet of pavement. And in fact, I really didn't have to even do much calculating on the stone beneath the pavement, because the 2 Caltex, by the removal of the two existing houses and the 1 new house, by putting that under the ground, that reduced it to 0% increase. There will be approximately another 35% decrease in runoff due to the porous pavement and 1 foot of stone beneath the porous pavement, because it allows the water to drop down into the stonework. So, but with a series of 3 Caltech systems, 1 for each house,
Right.
and the stone with the porous pavement, we are reducing the runoff down to a 0% increase. No additional
I understand.
increase in the runoff.
What kind of maintenance do those Caltech units require, and who's responsible for that?
Well, it would be the resident themselves would have to maintain very little, because they're a closed system in that there's no sediments and a minimum amount of sediments going into them. They can be deposited directly into the, that is they. The roof drainage can be deposited directly into a Caltech system because of the fact that it's not a parking lot that would be, have sand in it, oil substances, etc., where you have to put in in an intermediate system such as a set basin chamber or something to intercept that, and you'd have to clean that all the time. These Caltex are tied directly into the roof, never passes over the ground, so it doesn't pick up any sediment. It's collecting the drainage right off the existing roof and depositing it into the ground.
Okay.
So no maintenance really on those, except occasionally they have portholes. You check it just to see, is it filling up? But I don't suspect, of all the projects I've done, no one really has to spend a lot of time cleaning them. The porous pavement sweeping, that's what's recommended, yearly sweeping on your porous pavement.
That's the
Mostly
only
because of
maintenance on
the
that?
sand over the winter months, and
Yeah,
you sweep it and...
okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Boyle?
I have a couple of questions. Staying on the issue of drainage, just so that I understand the situation, there are no storm drains in the existing driveway.
No what?
storm drains.
No.
There are no storm drains in the existing driveway, it just runs off, okay?
Yes.
No, sir. On
On the driveway itself.
On Trotting Park itself, within, I think it's 50 to 100 feet, 75, it's plotted on the plan. I don't have the exact distance here, but there is a catch basin system that crosses Trotting Park and runs off into the state forest. That has been there for years, which has handled the Trotting Park drainage. What we're saying is any runoff from the street will reach those catch basin systems. And they traditionally are designed so that they usually have either hoods or whatever, either hoods or 90-degree bends so that the water rises, but no sediments get into the line. That stays in the basin, and the city cleans them, whatever their maintenance schedule is, but the city is the one that cleans those. What we're saying is we're not adding any additional runoff to those basins.
In a worst-case scenario, would you be able to tie in, to install a catch basin at the foot of the private way and tie into the existing storm drains?
Of course, anything's possible. I mean, yes, with design, I could do that. Thing is, there is already a couple of basins there. And there's, by design, there's no need for it because, like I said, we're putting the additional water beneath the surface. And the existing system has been accommodating their drainage for a number of years now.
Okay. I'm very interested in the porous bituminous paving surface. I think it's a very elegant solution. The threat, the danger being the infiltration of sand and grit into material into the pores, rendering it no longer permeable. Would, ma'am, you, in this maintenance plan, would you be willing to accept a condition that sand not to be applied to the
Probably
surface?
wouldn't be in there, because I wouldn't be going out there with a bucket throwing sand down, and, you know, I mean, you know, we have the driveway now, and we just kind of deal with it, you know?
You just plow it and you...
They would just
right.
plow it, and that's it, yeah.
And
yeah.
it would be the same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Nothing's really gonna change, really, you know, because it's gonna be in better shape than what we have right now.
All right. You know, although it's not typically taken into account when they do drainage calculations, the presence of a tree canopy over a paved area can reduce to a meaningful extent the amount of stormwater that hits the pavement, as well as to slow down the stormwater that hits the pavement. The canopy holds a little bit of water and drips, and so it reduces the stormwater problem. Which brings me to a couple of questions I approached here with, which was, first of all, do you have any plans to install street trees along this private way?
I need to take trees down, actually. There are trees, we're gonna need to remove trees right now.
By
because-
request of the fire department, they have another opinion of tree canopies for their equipment, so.
That's up at the turnaround area?
Even going up the driveway right now.
What was discussed with DPD too is we'd address that when they come out, we'll address it. I mean, what trees do you want out of here? What branches do you want cut? So, I mean, we got two chains of thought there. So we try to leave as many as we can, but accommodate the fire department with their concerns. And what we were thinking of doing is, if this is a project that can move forward with those stipulations, then we'd address both parties, Department of Planning and Development and/or Fire Department. To have an in-field meeting and say, okay, how do you want to solve this, both for safety and the runoff factor?
Okay. Also talking about taking out the trees, one of my questions I came with is, as you go up the driveway to the end, there are currently two large mature trees, more or less, right across from the end of the driveway. Are those going to have to come out to accommodate the fire department?
Everything at the end is gonna have to come out, that's where the house is gonna go.
Okay,
You know, everything there is gonna have to come out.
Right. The house is sitting directly on line with the proposed new driveway, private street, whatever we're going to term this. But obviously, we'd have to accommodate the lot by taking some trees down to
right.
put the house up. And again, DPD and fire department, you know, we'll discuss that with them on what we want to take down and see what they want.
I mean, personally, the trees that are there right now, I feel are endangered because they're so large, and, you know, anytime we have a bad storm now, I'm always afraid of trees coming down in my house, you know? Yeah, I mean, we have had branches coming down even over the past year, you know, some pretty large branches, so it's a little scary. I got little grandchildren running around there, you know, so those are really old trees, and I don't know how healthy they are, so that's a concern, too.
Okay. All right, that was all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a couple of questions before I start. The Division Plan Development have any comments? I know they gave us a the memorandum back on August 23rd. Anything changed since then, Aaron? or any-
There's a couple things. We already talked about the frontage reduction for at least one of the lots. I think it's lot 5B is referenced in the comments. Also, there's a comment with respect to the driveway widths at the end of the T turnaround, is basically the private way. They would still need to meet the zoning requirements, which is 15 feet at a maximum. However, there is an ability in the zoning code to increase that to 25 feet as long as the driveways are pervious pavement. So that's just something that needs to be clarified, is are they going to be pervious, in which case 24 feet would be adequate, would be sufficient. I don't believe there's a dimension on the plans showing how wide they are. But if it's not going to be porous pavement or permeable surface, then the curb opening at the T, where the driveway meets the private drive or private way, needs to be 15 feet. There was discussion about the homeowners association. We would recommend that if not submitted for approval before the decision's made, that a condition be included so that the board could review the final draft later on. And we do have examples, as the board knows, that there's been a handful of projects recently where where there's been a requirement for this, so we can provide at least a draft that can be built off. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to start from scratch. And then, finally, I think there's just some other comments from other departments. The water department mentioned they had trouble reading the plans as well. It might be worth just making sure that Archie Traynor gets a chance to review and approve any kind of new water utilities for the new, well, actually for all the residential buildings.
Mr. Close, just to get back then to what I brought up, the plan and development, I don't know if you received the memorandum that they gave out for August 23rd. Did they give you a copy of that by any chance? It would have been the one by Joe, the assistant planner.
Yeah, these are the ones on, is this it?
It's addressed to myself and the board members from Joe, and it's dated 8/23.
I should point out too, while he's reviewing it, that both the transportation engineer and the fire department have reviewed the plans and basically said they were fine with them as they are.
Yeah, I did see that the fire department transportation was on board. Okay.
We're also happy to work with the applicant and fire department and any other applicable department to identify places where trees could be saved and still achieve access and emergency access objectives. We're happy to do that.
On the thing you mentioned in the back about Lot 5B for the special permit for the slight reduction of the frontage, is that something we can act on in regards to the definitive subdivision plan, or does that have to come back for the special permit itself, or is that incorporated within?
It should be acted on separately because it wasn't noticed as
That's what I thought.
part of
It
this
wasn't
public hearing.
advertised thereof.
Yeah, there wasn't an application for that. What the planning board could do to save time for the applicant and for the board, frankly, is to continue it out to the first meeting in October, and which would provide basically notice to everybody who's already received notice of this public hearing, and to be safe, or I guess conservative, and make sure that everybody has the absolute opportunity to know that there's also a special permit as a part of this request. Send out a butters notice, because this was only, the notification only mentioned the definitive subdivision.
Yeah, that was a question I had when I saw it, okay, all right. Okay, so I'll ask you those questions directly in a second, okay. Wanda, do you have a chance to read this? The one you just showed you?
Is this,
823?
yeah, I read it today.
Okay. If I can have you flip it over to the back page where it says Development Service Commentary?
Yes,
Okay. So the first one, what he's talking about is the proposed driveways at the top of the T. So basically, they have to know how big that's gonna be, okay?
so you're saying to accommodate the city with a 15-foot driveway maximum? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, it's the curb cut
15 feet.
maximum in the zoning code.
That's from the existing houses and proposed house, curb cut driveways?
Correct, because they're changing.
There are no curbs, though.
No, it's just that term, the width of the driveway.
Yeah, to be clear, yeah, it's not, doesn't necessarily need to be a curb cut, so it doesn't mean that it
Right.
needs to be curb, it's an opening in the street or a public way.
I understood.
Okay. So,
Well, I mean, that's something I can really,
okay. All right. So my question was,
either a note or I can show on a plan, but again, every time you add something to the plan, it gets busy, as it's called.
yeah, well, either that, if we could do it by sheets, might make it less busy and easier to read that way, and then we could just do it sheet one of, 5, 1 of 6.
We have 4 now.
Okay, so we can, we can make it a little, because I know the engineer said they had a little hard time interpreting some of them, so if we
Yes.
could set them up in different sheets, it might be easier to pay particular attention to individual request or need, okay? So
Okay, so,
the question I had on number 2,
yeah,
it's a legal question, okay?
sure.
So they're saying Lot 5B, it features a slight reduction in frontage. So my question was, is that something we can approve under the definitive subdivision plan? And what Aaron's interpretation is, and I'm kind of to go along with him, would be, since this wasn't advertised for the special permit reduction, we may have to have a different hearing for that. So one of the considerations is, which was mentioned by Aaron, is if we filter through everything we've done so far tonight, and if the board's willing to consider, we can continue it and then advertise it as well for the special permit part for that lot reduction. Because if we approve the subdivision and we don't approve a special permit for the reduction on 5B, then the plan fails.
Do that first.
You see what I'm saying?
Obviously, we don't want it to,
Right. So, but the recommendation, because since they come up with, are you following me on this, Faith? on
Yeah,
this
I
little bit?
do.
Okay, so, I
Another
mean,
delay.
so instead of start at ground zero, if I may, we could continue and go forward. So, as a result of the plan.
You guys just like seeing me here.
Yeah. I don't think I respond to that appropriately without getting in trouble. I mean, I can say, well, we do, but then again, I know you're not coming down, but I know you've been here, like I say, several times. I remember when it first came in 4 years ago, the request was, you should come back for the subdivision, and that's what you've done. So I think the question would be is, if, as we go through some of these conditions that have been recommended by the Department of, the Water Department, the city engineer, the planning and development, if we address some of these, come back, and then if we advertise that we're continuing it to the next meeting, and to consider the special permit at that time. Because if not, we have to do this, stop it, open up, start it, and go all over again. Because the special permit, where you have the reduction, and as Aaron was saying, there's 2 ways for us to do that now. One was just, had come up in the last 2 years by the city council. And then he says, under this development, because of the size of your lot, you can come in the other way. So question, if we approve this, you still have to come back. So the question was, if we continued it and put this in the advertisement for the October meeting, as well as the special permit reduction, then legally, we could consider both at the same time. You follow me that one, Ronnie?
Yes.
Because, I mean, if not, if we can't approve the, put it this way, we cannot approve Lot B special permit reduction tonight.
Right.
If we did, then it would be reversible error on our part.
All right, the only thing, of course, that's Mrs. Draper's decision, but
Right,
the only thing
absolutely.
I would really be concerned with is I'd like to, I think we got plenty of direction here, and I think we tried to accommodate all departments.
Right.
And if there was some mix-up in presenting the calculations to engineering and/or the plans, what I believe we did do is provide a complete set. Once it came to the electronic end of it, I think we left some, it's just that I think I would have had to scan a lot of it is backup data from FEMA, our USGS, probably not FEMA in this one, but USGS, some of the Google sites you go to for different data, latitude, longitude, stuff like that. So I usually provide that within the whole package. Okay. And obviously, I thought just providing the calculations themselves, because I had already given in the backup data. And somehow when they, I think engineering was reviewing the original proposal.
Right.
I say that only because she referred to a retention pond.
Right, I saw that.
That's gone for the last year and a half or so. I mean, I don't think.
So, I mean, if, in the interim, if we did continue it, and then those new set of plans came up, it might check away at the engineer's request. Because, say if we did approve it conditionally, a lot of times we would say, you know, to follow the recommendations dated by the city engineer on this date. So maybe if that data was given to the city engineer, that was a missing from tonight's plans, maybe a lot of those concerns would go away.
Not to interfere with any departments, would it be acceptable for me to hand carry a hard set up to them?
Yeah, that'd be acceptable,
just,
sure.
So I make sure that I'm giving them
Right, sure.
what we
And then
presented.
usually I know when you give them to them, they sign off on them and give it back to a
Right,
receipt.
because we do have the stamp plans, and
Sure.
and
There's
as
no problem, right.
Aaron said, when they send them over electronically, it isn't the
I'm
stamp
sure there's no
plan.
problem with that, Aaron?
I just want to make sure that it's the same document,
Okay.
because there are a number of iterations, and I think things are getting a little,
So
I
it'd be
want to
easy-
make sure that we have the same calculations that the board gets to review and the same calculations that the engineer gets to review. I have no problem with that, but I just want to make sure we're all reviewing the same thing.
So is it easier for him just to give you the 8 plans, or?
Yeah, I can provide you with the same set at the,
Or
as
just
an
show
update.
me, and make sure that we have is the same thing.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Okay. Then, all right, so getting back to that, I know one of the things that were mentioned in both the recommendations, and you're well aware of, would be the homeowners association. Those have to basically be sent through our law department and to the city engineer. Okay, so usually you have to give us a proposal, what it look like, and then we have the law department review it to accept it.
Right. What I think Mr. Draper was trying to do is get an approval on the construction plans and then provide the documentation, if that's possible.
Yeah.
At
But
that time, they'd bring a lawyer in and,
Yeah, I mean, usually, we have a couple of ones that we've used in the past for, some type of idea. You may be able to refer to them and say, do you have a boilerplate one we could look at for an idea?
sure.
I
Instead of
do
starting
have,
from-
I have been given one just
Yeah.
to kind of give me an idea of what it,
Instead of
what it
starting from
contains and
scratch.
stuff. Yeah.
And then so legally, what we do is we have the law department look at it to make sure that it's acceptable with them, and they speak with the city engineer on it.
But could I, get the approval on the plan, and then provide that after? And like I said, I don't want to get into legal fees and for
right.
all that, and then
I
find
know,
out that I'm
yeah.
not going to get approved for the lot, so I'm trying
I
to.
understand that. I mean, so I'm just saying, these are some of the comments, so I mean, if sometimes if we give a conditional approval, I'm sure since it's mentioned by Division of Planning and Development, the city engineer, more times than not, would ask that that condition be abided by. The only other two things I see, which I know are pretty, one mentions about, where's the hydrant gonna be, Mr. Close? I know it says, it appears that it's gonna be proposed at the end of the way. I mean, if you just throw that on the plan, I'm sure that's not a big deal.
What's that?
They talked about a hydrant, it's gonna be down the bottom of the
yeah.
street somewhere?
I think they want it verified. I can put a note on the plan that
So I mean,
Hydrant is located at Lot 5D. It does show a hydrant.
so I mean, some of the concerns, you know, I think that we've addressed so far tonight, you know, was basically, you know, you talked about, have the fire department and the, they're okay with it as long as the trees are cut properly. Transportation engineer was okay, as long as, I mean, that was an okay outright. Division of Planning and Development said they'd work with the fire department and yourself to take care of the trees at the top of the street, which he had said you go along with. I think the water department wanted to have a clearer look at the plans. And we talked about the driveway at the top of the street, we talked about the special permit, and the hydrant, a couple of other matters. So I think, just to back up, I remember when you came in before, I believe you told me, what's it? 5B and 5C, like, in the same, is your family on both of those two lots?
Yes,
You said
I
your
own one
family?
house, my daughter and son-in-law own the other house.
So,
So
I'm sorry,
the piece in the middle is coming out of this
yeah.
part
So
of most of our
how's it
land.
now? The house to the right is which one?
The house on the right is mine.
Right,
The house on the left is my daughter's.
right. And so you're gonna put the new one in the middle.
The one in the middle is gonna be my new house, and then this daughter wants to buy my house.
So you'll have the benefit of walking out your front door to see your
I won't have to
granddaughter.
walk so far to visit my grandchildren.
I mean, you know, that's why, you know, we look at the plan, that sometimes, you know, we comment about, this isn't a major plan that we want, but looking where it is, and talk about neighborhood, I mean, I don't think any more of a neighborhood than having a family neighborhood, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you build
I mean,
families and
we're
neighborhoods?
so far off the road, nobody even knows what goes on back there, really.
And I
you know?
believe when you were in here in the past, you gave us information that your butters in the front, had no problems with the plan at all, and it
I
makes
walked around to, before I even started this whole process, I walked around to all my neighbors, I told them what I wanted to do and asked them what they thought, and they thought it was a great idea, no one had any problems with it, you know?
because really, when you buckle down to it, I think most of it really comes down about being the private driveway, and just making sure engineering is approvable,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
I mean,
very- that's-
you know, and, so do you have any problem, Mr. Close, if we make a recommendation to continue to the October meeting? That way we can consider the, special permit as well, and that way you can get updated plans to the department.
What is the October date?
Do you have that one offhand? It'll be the first Monday in October.
That's correct, I don't know that off the top of my head.
One moment, please.
Oh.
I can find it. First meeting in October
It'll be
is...
first Monday in October. I know my,
October 1st?
is it?
Yep, that's the first.
I believe that's all right.
First?
Would that give you enough time? Okay, so that's just a recommendation. If not, I'll put that in the form of a motion. Does anybody, do you have any discussion on that?
I'll second that,
Any
Mr.
board members have any discussion on that? Okay, motion been made to continue the matter till October 1st. Obviously, we've discussed a few things in length here tonight. So motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, so we'll see you on October 1st, and get the new set of plans there, and obviously, we've gone over some of the concerns, and
Hopefully that'll be it, huh?
hopefully that'll be it. Hopefully that'll be it. Obviously, you won't have the new house in for Christmas, for Christmas and trick or treat, but, so you.
I'd like to get a nice road in before the winter comes, you know?
Yeah, so, all right, we'll see you then, good luck, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I
Sure.
have a question for planning staff.
Sure.
It has been a while, so perhaps you can refresh my memory. I seem to recall, there are a number of roads, of streets, actual public streets in the city with a 40-foot right-of-way that do accommodate street trees. Am I incorrect about that, that a 40-foot right-of-way is in fact sufficient for a paved area, allowing fire access, as well as street trees?
I would suspect there's many. I mean, many of the older roads and streets that were minor streets were much more narrow than what was required at this point. Yeah. They can be accommodated.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you October 1st. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wish you well, good luck. Moving along on the agenda tonight, we have a rezoning request. Rezoning request is for 225, 231, 251 Mount Vernon Street, 286, 290, 294 School Street, 540 and 590 Broadway Street. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 5, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinance, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 290, therefore entitled zoning. The amendment would extend the adjacent urban mixed-use zoning district to include the lots located at the above-mentioned addresses, which are currently within the urban multifamily zoning district. Back in August, there was a letter that was sent by City Manager Lynch to the City Council requesting the zone change, and a copy has been sent to us for tonight's consideration. And it went on to say, Dear Mayor Murphy and members of the City Council, in the furtherance of the goals and objectives of the Acre Development Plan, also known as the Acre Plan, the city is in desire of a zone change for the properties located at those above addresses. And then it goes on and states them all in 540 Broadway, all of which are city-owned. Included among the major aspects of the Acre Plan was a new zoning intended to separate and maximize the value and use of residential and commercial units in the Acre neighborhood. Currently, the aforementioned properties are included in an urban multifamily zoning district, which generally allows for residential uses. The aforementioned properties directed abut an urban mixed-use zoning district, which provides for easy development of small retail and commercial space and provides a special permit option for smaller residential uses. Extending the U zone to the aforementioned properties would better advance the public purpose of assisting in the fulfillment of the goal of the Acre Plan, as well as proposed zone change would retain the small-scale nature of the budding properties, both residential and commercial, and provided flexible redevelopment while also limited industrial use. Generally, the only near-term redevelopment opportunities exist at 251 Mount Vernon Street. UMU zone would allow small retail and/or commercial occupation and redevelopment of the historic but unoccupied building at 251 Mount Vernon Street in character with the surrounding uses. The Law Department has prepared this matter, and they referred it to the zoning amendment. It's scheduled for public hearing before the City Council on Tuesday, September 25th, and the matter was sent to us for report. So it appears that the city is the one who's in charge, who's requesting the zone change. Am I correct by that? And we have someone here to speak in regards to the zone change?
Chairman
You may,
Linehan.
please.
Yep, Chairman Linehan and members of the Planning Board. I'm Craig Thomas, Urban Renewal Project Manager here at the City of Lowell. I'm here really to provide additional background information on this request. I oversee many of the city's activities in the Acre Urban Renewal Zone, as well as the JAM Urban Renewal Zone, which includes the Hamilton Canal District. I've given you, by way of background, a sheet, and I apologize both to you and to anyone who's watching that I couldn't make a digital copy available of this, but to give a little bit of background about this site and the nature of this rezone request. Again, the city does own all of those parcels. I would like to add that because of the way it was referred to the planning board, it was required to be advertised as you read, but one of them was inadvertently included. 225 Mount Vernon Street is currently zoned as UMU, so that does not, in fact, need a UMU rezone. If you look at the information that I've given you, the first sheet is the existing land use, and this was the land use in place at the time the Acre Urban Renewal Zone was proposed and ultimately accepted. I've taken the liberty of highlighting the area that is now the Stocklosa School, associated parking, recreational facilities, and 251 Mount Vernon Street. Now, this area was actually slated for and obviously successfully acquired by the city and was cleared to make way for the Stocklosa School. If you turn to the second page, the future land use plan, you'll see a general concept plan of how the Stocklosa School would be laid out. Again, it was roughly similar to this plan, although again, it doesn't hold the street edge on Mount Vernon Street. And you can see on the future land use plan, the additional building on the site. That is 251 Mount Vernon Street. And the logic of this rezone is largely about a adaptive reuse of the historic building at 251 Mount Vernon Street. If you look at the third page, this is a little hard to read, but I tried to highlight it so you can see where the different elements of parcel 2 were proposed to be redeveloped. Now again, parcel 2 is the entire Stocklosa School area, including what's now 251 Mount Vernon Street. I've taken the liberty of highlighting under the public 2 again for Stocklosa School, the second line, which lists 8,419 square feet, and it's in the square foot office column. This is the square footage and is in fact identifying 251 Mount Vernon Street as a property for rehabilitation. Now, obviously, per this table, it was envisioned for a public and institutional use, the thinking being this was a significant historic structure in the acre urban renewal zone that should be preserved, and if we're going to make the investment in the Stockholza School on this site, that hopefully we could find a way to incorporate this as school administrative buildings. Now, for anyone who's seen the building, you know that has not come to pass. The city of Lowell still owns the building, and we're, again, looking for a way to adaptively reuse the building in line with the original plan here. Again, this calls for an office use, and at the time, as the entire area was zoned UMF, that wouldn't necessarily pose a problem. City facilities at the time were not listed in the zoning table. They're currently listed, but are allowed in all districts with some exceptions for wastewater water facilities. So this would be allowable under the current zoning regime on the site. However, as a part of the reuse potential, we're investigating private reuse as well, either through lease with the city or through outright sale. But in discussions with the state, in order to maintain the intent of the plan, we're looking at a light commercial type use in line with the proposed administrative office use of the original plan. Again, if you look at the final page, it's simply an illustrative plan of what the final site would look like once complete, and then it has a lot of the other developments, some of which may need to come back before this body or others in the coming years that we're working actively on. But again, it largely shows what's out there. We have the Stockholza School with associated ball fields, and even though it doesn't show up well in color, a rehab 251 Mount Vernon as commercial office space. So again, the intent of this rezone is to facilitate this type of reuse, but because we're looking at potential opportunities that include non-city use, either through lease of our property or through sale, it's necessary to pursue the rezone. Now, as you'll notice, we're also looking to rezone the entire block. Part of that is simply to keep in line with our general zoning philosophy, which is to maintain a consistent zone for adjacent similar uses. So any type of rezone to include 251 Mount Vernon would include a significant portion of the school property. So in keeping with our own principles to say if we're using some of the school property for this rezone, we should rezone the entire school property as it is one contiguous use to maintain the similarity of adjacent properties with zoning districts. That's the background I'm prepared, and I'm also willing to answer any additional questions the board may have.
Thank you.
No, it's much, it's very good.
Anybody else want to speak in regards to this project? Anybody else want to speak? Obviously, no one's coming forward, and nobody else is in the audience at this time, but I know I have to open it up to the public to make sure that everybody has opportunity to speak, even though we have no one else present this evening with us. But, so at this time, let me turn it over to any board members who have any questions. Procedure-wise, just let people know, this is just a vote. We recommend to the council for the zone change. It's not a binding vote. We can't put conditions on it. We need to vote for recommendation for yes or no. As you know, procedure-wise, the council cannot do their public hearing until they get a report from the planning board. That's why procedurally it's referred to us first, then sent back, and by reading the advertisement I read tonight indicates that they're scheduled for the 25th of September for the city council meeting. So at this time, any of the board members have any questions? Mr. Boyle, you have any questions?
A couple. You had, just to make sure I understood what you were telling us earlier, Craig, you said that the city is currently in negotiations with the state to modify the plan to accept a private commercial or office use in this building as part of the acre plan?
Yes, so as a part of the investigations of a new potentially private reuse of the building, I touched base with the Department of Housing and Community Development. At the state level, that's the body that regulates urban renewal zones across the Commonwealth. They ultimately need to approve any land disposition, acquisition, or plan changes. And it's often the disposition and acquisition that leads to necessary plan changes. I described the intent of what we're looking at, which are the potential for a few different types of commercial reuse of the site, but again, in line with the original plan of an office space, light commercial type use. They had indicated that through a lease agreement, a medium to long-term lease, a 10 to 20-year lease of the site, we would not actually need a plan change. What we're proposing is in line with the original plan. However, if we were to outright sell the property to a private developer or a private landowner, we would in fact need to seek a minor plan change because that is listed to be maintained as a city acquisition parcel. Now, the city did acquire it already, But again, for the disposition before the end of the plan's life, it would require a minor plan change, yes.
Okay. Okay, another question I had was about the boundaries that were of the proposed rezoned area. Typically, common procedure for the city in built-up urban districts, the city avoids drawing zoning lines down the middle of the street so as to avoid having one zoning district on one side of the block, another zoning district on the opposite side of the block. In a suburban area, a more auto-oriented suburban area, having two very different uses across the street isn't considered much of a challenge because they're not on top of each other. In an area in the built-up urban areas of Lowell, though, the decision was made that that we didn't want to have different zoning districts across the street from each other. Why was the decision made to draw the boundary down the middle of Mount Vernon Street as opposed to, say, at mid-block?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it relates to the nature of this area in the city zoning map. So the zoning line on School Street is an existing mid-street zoning district divide. So simply on that side have brought it to that zoning district down to the light industrial that's on the National Grid property that you'll see.
Right.
On the front page, it has the large circles and some of the longer rectangular buildings. That's National Grid property and zone light industrial.
Right.
Again, the decision about the mid-street zone, while not preferable, has been made in other places in the city, and it has to do with other considerations. Again, principally that another element of our zoning philosophy has been to zone like adjacent uses with the same zoning. So if we were to rezone the entire Stockholster School block, as is proposed at the moment, the only way to avoid the situation of a mid-street zoning district divide would be to then rezone the area across Mount Vernon Street, which is acceptable, except again in this particular case where that's also city-owned property known as the Susi site. The city's working on a variety of planning possibilities for that site, and the decision was made that to change the zoning at the moment while we're still working through potential reuse of that site may make it more complicated. It may in fact be that eventually that will be urban mixed use in line with another portion of our zoning philosophy to keep zoning blocks from ending mid-street. So I agree, that is the philosophy. Sometimes though we have to weigh other considerations, and that's what happened in this case.
Okay. Okay, so there is the possibility of that matter coming back before the council for an additional rezoning to further extend the urban mixed-use district.
I'll be clear, there are no plans for that at the moment. However, that is a possibility. It always is a possibility in general, but in particular with the flexibility of the planning processes that are ongoing for the Susi site, depending on what ideas come forward, if we can find a way that we can continue the philosophy of keeping like districts on both sides of a street that fit with that site, then that I think would be preferential to any other type of redevelopment.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
I have
Mr.
no
Lockhart, no?
no
Mr.
question.
Bichette, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions, just a quick comment, looking at the table of uses and looking at the recommended change. I think it's not a severe departure even from what's there, and it just has a provision for special permits for any residential development, so it doesn't prevent it, but then it allows the board to weigh the impact of any other conflicts of development within there, and it does preserve it from not becoming light industry and mixing that and providing the buffer. So I certainly would have no issues with what's being recommended. Thank you.
Okay. After hearing the presentation, I have no questions at this time. So what's the wish of the board? We have to make a recommendation one way or another to the city council.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend approval of the rezoning as documented in the proposal here on our agenda.
Motion's made.
Mr. Chairman, a second?
Second, matter second. Any discussion?
Chairman, before you vote on the motion, would the board be amenable to, as I indicated at the outset of my comments, revising the rezone request that was put before you to remove 225 Mount Vernon as it is currently zoned as UMU, and doesn't actually necessitate a zone change?
Which one do you need? We move
225 Mount Vernon.
25?
Or remove that.
If that's okay with the maker of the motion.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay with the second of the motion?
Are there any procedural problems with that?
I don't think so. It's advertised, it has all the addresses in there. If it's a procedural matter, I think even though it's advertised, it's better to have more than, not enough. And then if it's procedure, and if he makes a motion to amend, I think we couldn't vote on it.
Right, the public hearing is taking place now. There will be another public hearing at the city council at that place. The council has the ability, and the planning board has the ability to recommend changes to the proposed amendment. So it's allowable to mess around, noodle around with.
We have a little
the
leeway.
Proposal.
Right.
So removing it is fine. It's been notified, so it's okay from a procedural standpoint.
Would it be appropriate or helpful for us to include that proposed change in our recommendation?
I know for the recommendation, we either have to vote yes or no. We can't make conditions on it. So,
If I may,
Sure.
Chairman, you're absolutely right. The recommendation can't be a conditional recommendation. However, you can, with that recommendation,
we can give
say-
an explanation.
explanation of why you would approve the proposed amendment with the suggestion that the XYZ are included or with the amendment. So in this case, hypothetically, you could motion that it's an approval.
With the request from the applicant that number 225 be removed.
Correct. Does it make sense? It's not a conditional
Right.
recommendation, it's
As
a recommendation to
requested.
approve.
Requested.
We make a recommendation as requested by the applicant to approval with the request that 225 be omitted or removed.
Correct. That's fine.
And that should meet the satisfaction, correct? Okay. Any further questions on that? Or-
Will it require another motion to amend the motion to approve?
Yeah, so what I did is I asked Richard, who was the maker of the motion, if he had any problems with amending that, and he said no. So then I asked you if you have any problems with seconding that.
Not at all.
Okay. So we have a motion made and seconded as amended. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? None. So the motion carries for recommendation in favor. Thank you, Craig. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to see you all again. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, new businesses, we have none on record now. We do have other businesses, we do have some ZBA notices. I believe we have one that the planning staff did give to us for recommendation. This is James and Mary Katsabatis at 835 Chelmsford Street. And these are matters that are going before the zoning board of appeals that is scheduled for a hearing on September 10th, which is this Monday night. These matters come before us recommendation only, and they are requesting a variance to convert a single-family to a two-family dwelling without the required lot area per dwelling unit pursuant to section 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. Division of Planning and Development did give us a handout on that in regards to what the application is looking for. We do have a copy of the plot plan that was put in, and I believe we also received some written notification from Division of Planning and Development in regards to this matter.
Mr. Chairman, my biggest concern is the comments from DPD regarding some deficiencies with the application itself, regarding the requiring the information be submitted to, it says, recommends the board require additional information to supplement the current application that clearly mentions the specific variances sought, so it's not clear what variants are actually being sought in the project. And then also recommends the board require an updated plan as the plan submitted does not include a number of elements required for a variance application. So I think, regardless of the other issues, I think that needs to be, addressed by the zoning board of appeals. I think for my opinion is providing any kind of a recommendation would be premature without having clear application as to what variances are being sought. That would just be my thoughts on that.
One of the concerns I had was, I look at the plan, one of the question was that the property does not meet the land area per dwelling unit requirements of the 4,000 square feet per dwelling unit as established in the zone. There are concerns associated with the proposed site layout with regards to the open space, as it does not meet the usable open space from the plan. I believe on the plan, they didn't come out and ask it, but if I remember correctly, by looking at the table of requirements for the zoning, I believe, they're shot on the side yard. They don't come out and tell you that. They said what's required for the side yard is 10 feet, some of 25. So what you need a minimum of 10 on one side. If you look at the plan to the right, I'm trying to find my north arrow here. From the right, he only has 7.35. So they'd be shot there. So I think they have a couple of concerns that was outlined. What was the other one? Okay, get the. So I think the Division of Plan Development did come up with a couple of concerns they did have. And for those reasons as stated, I'd make a recommendation for denial. Any discussion?
I think, well, one of the other ones was, on the original plan we had, it doesn't depict the deck and the stairway extending into the parking area accurately. And if we can't really tell about turnaround space and everything. So yeah, I'd make a motion for denial on those.
Okay. Motion made for denial. I withdraw my, as requested by myself, then, is, do you want to second what I made, Rich, with that condition as well?
Yes,
with that
I'll
concern?
second that.
Okay. So we have a motion, recommend denial, as conditions, as stated by myself and also by Mr. Lockhart. So we have motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Do you have a question?
I do have a question.
Sure.
Is it it seems a bit early in the process to recommend a denial. There are insufficiencies with the plan in terms of what they're asking for variances, in terms of providing enough. I don't feel that we have enough information in order to make a decision. Recommending a denial is as final an action as recommending an approval. I don't feel convinced that I want to deny this project yet. I don't think I know enough to vote on it one way or the other. Sure. I would like them to fix their plan, provide the information that the city needs, that this body needs to make a recommendation, that the ZBA needs in order to make a final decision,
Right.
and then make our decision based upon that.
Right. And the way I look at it, for the reasons that's stated by Division of Plan Development, the three things that they're missing, not counting all the structural matters, is we make a recommendation because the matter's going before them. We make a recommendation, reasons for a denial, then my feeling is when they go before the ZBA, they can try to correct those matters. But I think if you look at the plan where they don't have the side yard, they don't have the open space, they don't have the other things that mentioned, I think if they changed it, they have to make the new plan to satisfy those. So for that reason, that's why, some of the things they mentioned, they could fix, but the fact that they don't have meet the land area dwelling unit, they don't meet the open space, those are basic reasons why I would go along with it, denial. And it's not for us to call them back and have them give us a new plan. We just make a recommendation as this plan is submitted to us. So then, sometimes we come out, and as Jerry started to say earlier, some of the stuff was inadequate, maybe didn't have enough information. I agree with that part, but I also agree with the two reasons stated that I highlighted by Division of Plan and Development. For those reasons alone, I would vote no on it. So, so we made a motion to vote no. If you're uncomfortable to no, then you can either vote against it or abstain from voting, whichever you feel comfortable with, basically, Because, but then when we bring it forward, what they're gonna do is, they're gonna ask these same questions to them at the ZBA meeting, you know? And, I mean, and again, you know, for the variance, they have to meet 3 criterias. And one of the reasons the guy mentions he wants the variance, because he wants it financial reasons, which is not a requirement for a variance. I'm moving towards retirement, I feel I need the rental income. That alone of itself is not something that, subject to agreement of the variance. I mean, because anybody could say, I want to rip this down and build 3 houses, I want more money in my pocket. It's not a requirement. So, those are the reasons why I'd make the denial, because I think, you know, the open space and the, what did I say, the other one, the land use, so I mean, a lot of times, we don't have enough. Sometimes we just vote, we don't have enough, but on the information, but I think, and they're requesting that they don't have these 3 things, you know, they do not meet the land area per dwelling unit, they don't meet the side yard, they don't meet the open space. Those are the reasons that I feel comfortable voting against it, you know, so I mean, it's totally up to yourself. You know, and if you don't feel comfortable with that, then you don't have to go along with the make of the motion, or, you know, so just a recommendation, so, but that's why, you know, we make recommendation, I stated those are the 3 reasons I feel uncomfortable with that plan, for those reasons.
Has planning staff been out to this site?
I have not myself, but staff has been to the site to look at it. And the comments are preliminary in that, you know, we're really trying to highlight, first and foremost, the information that was missing to make a real strong recommendation from a staff point of view. I believe there is in the comments, with respect to the deck, that there is, from just looking at the site, looking at the plans that were provided, even if there seems to be discrepancies between the placement of the deck on the building plan and then the site plan, site circulation, at the very least, is a challenge if not workable to accommodate all parking spaces for 3 units. They need to provide 6 parking spaces. And so there's, on the plan, they're showing 2.
They're supposed to provide 6 parking spaces.
Yeah, for a 3 unit, it's 2 per dwelling unit. So they're showing 4 on the plan, as I recall. So there's 2 in the garage and then 2 just in the lot. There may be space for more, and that's what has been kind of, it's been hinted at in the application. But what we're looking for is, okay, if maybe that's so, it's hard to see that from a site visit and from the plans that have been submitted. Most likely, they would need a variance or need to adjust something on the site to accommodate all 6 cars and meet the space requirements for parking spaces as well. There's the requirement for the space itself, I believe for this district, it's 9 feet by 18 feet long. There's also the drive aisle to make sure a car can pull in and out.
I may be a little confused here. Aren't we talking about something that is currently a single-family home that is being proposed for conversion to a 2-family home?
Pardon me, I think you're right, it's 1 to 2. There's a very similar project, I think, that's going to 2 to 3.
So
This
we
might
are
be 1 to 2, so, but there still is a concern about access for the parking. If you look at the site plan, the deck is shown on the back left side of the building. And then if you look at the building plan, it's shown on the back right side of the building with a staircase leading down if you're facing the lot, the right side of the lot. That staircase, if it's built as is shown in the building plan or the rendering, is going to cause problems for cars trying to access the parking garage. So, again, the concern about parking access, they're showing 4 parking spaces. If it's 2 units, then they're showing that there's enough spaces, but the question is there access for the residents who live there to get and use those spaces? Are they practical spaces, is what we're getting at with that.
I agree. I still have questions about this plan, which are unanswered, and do not feel that I have enough information about the proposal and about how it would fit into the existing neighborhood context in order to make a recommendation one way or another. Mr. Chairman, perhaps we can handle it this way. I make a motion to amend the previous motion to report to the zoning board that the current application provides inadequate information for us to make a decision.
Well, okay, you can make that motion. I'm gonna stick with my original motion, which has a motion and a second, because I think, as I iterated, there's 3 or 4 deficiencies in the plot plan that I wouldn't give a recommendation for. So, let's back up and see, does anybody wanna, so we have a so first of all, I have a motion on the floor that we deny, that was second. So, we'll go off for discussion. If I withdrew that, does anybody feel that is insufficient, or do they feel that we have enough to make a recommendation for denial?
Mr. Chairman, if I just make the discussion. Sure. And I understand what Mr. Boyle is saying, and you're going to share the concerns, but I in hearing your comments and looking at what is actually where it appears the variances that are required and based on the deficiencies in the application, I would say I'm comfortable in recommending denial based on what was submitted to us. Clearly, I think what Mr. Boyle has indicated, I think that it would be incumbent upon the zoning board of appeals, obviously, to pursue that. I would suspect in their deliberation and making a decision. And again, I share those same concerns and indicated that, but I certainly, with the deficiencies as noted in what we have before us, I certainly would be comfortable in recommending the denial. And obviously, it's similar to a recommendation to the city council. It's non-binding to the zoning board of appeals. They can take that and do with it what they would like as far as following it or not. But that would be my thoughts. Thank you.
Because one of my thoughts too is, if they give deficiencies to us, then if I'm not satisfied with those because of the lack of the deficiencies, then that's more of a reason for denial than approval.
Right.
That's the way I look at things. I'm saying, as a hearing officer, which we are, we vote on what's presented to us. And this is the way they gave it to us. It has deficiencies, and overcoming the deficiencies, the reasons that I stated that DPD said is, I didn't like those reasons to begin with. So with the deficiencies in the, the usable space, question of parking, they don't have the side yard requirement. For all those reasons alone, because I'd vote against it. Saying what I said, I'll let my motion stand. We do have a second. If you feel uncomfortable with going along with the denial, then you can just vote against it.
Based on what Mr. Frechette just said, I would feel comfortable recommending denial of, not of the project, of the application.
Mm-hmm.
This application, I would not want to approve this application.
And I think that's where we're kind of in the box, they come in, if the plan, has all these deficiencies with them, I think that speaks to something that we have to either decide. Especially with just a recommending body. Obviously, if we had the benefit of the public hearing, like the ZBA does and we had earlier this evening, we could chip away at these, like we did earlier this evening. And said, if you can amend this, if you could do this, or if you could clarify this for us, or if you could take a look at this and we continue it and come back with more detail for us to consider, then they could cure some of those deficiencies.
Right.
We really don't have the benefit of that with just a recommending body on something like this.
So in normal planning board procedure, when we issue a recommendation on this, would it simply be a thumbs up, thumbs down, a yes, no, a recommendation?
It's,
or would we say we recommend denial based on?
Yeah, so usually when we send it to them, they want to know why we shot it down, why we recommend it. It's more like when we recommend to the council, they can use that recommendation, or they can totally ignore it. Right. Sometimes when I watch the ZBA, they don't even mention what recommendations we gave them. Mm-hmm. If they like the recommendations we gave them, sometimes they will mention them, So basically, it's not a binding matter. So therefore, I think, when we have deficiencies in the application, that's basically all we have to go for to begin with. But so that's why I looked past some of the deficiencies on the thing and looked at some of the substance to it. Where I don't like the fact, they don't have the side yard. They indicated, the parking layout. And see, if we mentioned, our concern was they didn't have the side yard, didn't have the, open space, and had a question on the parking. Now, when they got our recommendation, they get it in writing, just give it to them, they would say, well, seeing that reason, if I was one of their board members, I'd say, well, what is your parking layout? Because they would see what reasons we
Right.
went against it and say, all right, well, maybe the planning board has some valid matters, and maybe they don't, or maybe I just want to inquire as to one of them. You know, obviously, they can't change the side yard, but when they're, the open space and everything else, when they go into a bigger building and livable space, that's something that we gotta consider, you know, so. Yeah, you know, the parking one, they could definitely explain that, and then, because when you look at all the decks there, it's gonna make a difference on how people get in and out of there, you know, safety issue, but, I mean, so, therefore, they have more of the benefit of that than we do, you know, so. So, let me read it, so we go back, I had a motion to deny with the recommendations made, it was second. So, motion's made and second, all in favor of recommendation denial?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the chair made a motion, that makes yes, so then again, so we have all in favor for recommendation for denial. Did you have those reasons, Aaron, basically what we spoke against?
Yes, I do. It's
Okay.
based
I
on,
think it was
based on
also-
the plan and application that was submitted, the number or magnitude of relief that was requested or appears to be needed for the proposal, site circulation, and then deficiencies in the plan submittal.
Right, and I think the other thing is the open space and the living space, right?
Yeah,
Right,
just
right.
one comment. I did visit the site. I didn't drive out and back, but we've done this in other cases too. Just increasing the density in here is questionable if you don't have the open space now. You know, I mean, it's just becoming more dense, and that's not a desirable thing. It's got a skinny little driveway here on the left, increasing it to a two-family on a busy street. There may be some issues there as well, so I'm comfortable with the denial as the project is presented here.
Okay,
Mr. Blockout, can I ask, did you note the nearby land uses, the other houses along the street, what those, what the majority of those were?
Basically the same time, I didn't really look at that, Joe, but
You were concentrating on the subject property.
yeah, and it's a busy street, so it's,
stuff when you're out walking around, right?
so I really can't comment on the use of them. All similar type housing along that stretch, though.
Moving along, do we have any other general correspondences, any from the board members? No?
There is one thing of note, we received a public hearing notice from the town of Tewksbury. There's a property, and I can just hand out this plan. We'd asked this town for a plan, but it's a proposal for commercial space. I think it's generally something that would be considered contractor garages on Woburn Street, just on the other side of the city property line. You may recall, I think it was about a year and a half ago or so, there was at least a preliminary proposal here for a large residential project that would have been, which would have gone through the 40B process in the town of Tewksbury. However, it didn't meet the city's zoning requirements. There's a sliver of land that is actually in the city of Lowell. The current proposal appears to meet the zoning requirements, but I did want to bring it to the board's attention just for your review and consideration in case you wanted to provide any comment formally to, I think it's the Tewksbury's Planning Board who's considering this as a special permit and site plan review. Basically, the long and short of it is if there is a property that is in two communities, in this case Tewksbury and one in Lowell, for our purposes, for the city's purposes, all the uses on the parcel that is within the city of Lowell, active or passive, need to meet the zoning requirements of the city of Lowell. So there are no active uses on the piece, and I don't hand this out right now.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like you say, we've seen them before where we have the zoning in the city of Lowell, we have a sliver in Drake, but it has to meet all the Lowell zoning to.
Right, yeah.
You know, and then but, yeah, we've had one or two of those. So it's out Woburn Street, I mean, when you,
This is the city property right here.
On Woburn Street. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so when you're heading out to Tewksbury, so you,
Where
if
are
you-
we?
I'm thinking, so if you're heading out Woburn Street, you go into 495, right, and you go past the Dunkin' Donuts on the right there, then keep going straight out? Is that how far out it is? Woburn Street, you know, you go up Woburn Street to the Dunkin' Donuts on one side, which we allowed that to go bigger, and you head on the 495 and head out that way? into Tewksbury, right?
Yeah, you
And you head up to J.R. Reardon's that used to be up there, then the train station's up there, right? So you're coming under this way, right? So 495 would,
495 is right about here.
okay,
Yeah, and so you're coming down, there's that small regional retail district.
yeah, yeah.
That is.
When Little Dunkin' Donuts was there.
Before 95.
Right, which would be right here, yeah.
Right,
Okay,
it's
so you
part
come,
of a gas station.
yeah,
right?
yeah. And that came before us for the Dunkin' Donuts expansion, yeah.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah,
Right there,
yeah.
before you go on the 495 on the right-hand side, yeah.
Right.
When is that, Aaron, when is that going before the Tewksbury Planning Board?
17.
So we won't see this again, okay, okay.
When we reviewed it, since there's no active use on the portion of the parcel that's in the city of Lowell, what it needs to do is it needs to meet this setbacks and screening, parking lot screening requirements. And it appears to meet that. We've looked at it a couple times. The minimum is that there's a 10-foot buffer between the parking lot and residentially zoned lots, which is what the abutting lots are. They're a single-family, I think it's traditional single-family district. They're all residentially developed. So at a minimum, there needs to be a 10-feet buffer with some landscaping. And what they're showing in their plans, at the very least, is that at a minimum, it's, I think, 11 to 12 feet, and then expands as it goes farther back from Woburn Street, and then preserving, right now, there's a stand of trees, and preserving those, pretty much all the trees that are in the city of Lowell. So it appears to meet all the zoning requirements.
So it's on the right-hand side heading out, okay. Yep. Oh, okay, I get an idea of it now. So does Tewksbury have the same requirements that we do, that has to meet all the requirements on site in Tewksbury?
Well, I don't know for sure. The way, my understanding in their discussion with the planner in Tewksbury about a year ago is that they would have to meet, all the active uses would need to meet Tewksbury zoning requirements.
So like we have, then, okay.
Right.
You think it's similar to what we have? I don't know if that's standard among cities and towns, or if they
It's
vary.
probably, I don't know if it's standard, but I would imagine it's fairly common, yeah.
I think it gives the city more little land use approval. If they, you know, instead of,
Certainly, I mean, it
instead
certainly
of
adds a
saying, well,
lot
the other
more
town's
control.
gonna do this, you're like, well, you're in my town.
The previous proposal was a good example of that, because it was a 40B, it was a friendly 40B project. They weren't ramming it through the process, the developer wasn't.
How many
But it
units they looking
certainly
for?
didn't give the city of Lowell much of input, except for the fact that they needed that space to achieve what they were trying to achieve. Pardon me,
960 square feet.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I see units 1 through 8, then 10 through 17, is that what it looks like? Total of 17, maybe? I think I got 1 through 8 here, Jerry, then 10 through 17, unless there's something.
It's 20,000, between 20 and 30,000 square feet of space.
14, there's three different buildings then, right?
There's a building here, there's a building there. Is that something? I don't know. FF. I got an FF 127.85, FF 128. And I don't know what the other one is.
Now, there's a proposed 960 square foot office building and an 18,000 square foot building, and 14,400 square foot industrial building.
If you go out here further, isn't there like Reardon's Liquor out here, then further out, you get to Borica there, and you have the Borica train station.
Correct, yep.
Yeah. So this is submitted to us for information from budding towns, right?
Yeah, we received a notice, as we're supposed to, and when we noticed its location, we asked the Tewksbury Town Planner if they could send us a package for your review, in case there were any comments. We also just wanted to understand what the project was, based on some concerns of the last proposal. Like I said, this one is much more in keeping, at least with what's in the city and what we would have any control of. If there was any, I think, general comments for the Tewksbury Planning Board to consider, they can always take comments. There wasn't anything that we saw off a quick review that we felt was necessary to submit on a formal basis, but I know it's a very short look right now, but
So reading from the narrative, the proposed 960 square foot office building, 18,000 square foot and 14,400 square foot, industrial buildings are located in heavy industrial zoning district. So we have the office building for 960. Can you figure out what that is, Joe? A 960 square foot office building? Is that to the rear there?
Yes, that's that little rectangle in the back.
In the back, that's what I thought, okay. So that's the proposed 960 square foot office building, okay. Then we have the 18,000 square foot and 14,000 square foot
right
industrial
here,
buildings. So that would be these two?
This one and this one,
Okay.
yeah.
The proposed industrial buildings will be equipped with high garage bay doors and intended for industrial and light manufacturing uses, similar to tradesman shop type uses. So you're probably backing in some type of trucks in there, I
Yeah.
imagine, right? If you-
Yeah, it's
if
kind
you
of
need-
garage type
You need the
spot.
big doors.
Contractor garages
The
in the
proposed
past.
960 square foot office building would be used for property maintenance or similar office use. So it would be office building back here to
Right there.
maintain those. And you think they, could be almost like a storage area as well, right?
Yeah, I think they're kind of the same building typology. They're not very sturdy buildings, but they're small kind of, they're small
Garage.
boxes that people can lease out, and they're contractor
Divided
garages,
up like
painters,
contractors,
contractors,
you know, businesses like
plumbing,
that, yeah,
that sort of thing.
Yeah, a lot of them would put their supplies in there because they don't have the place
Sure.
on site, right?
yeah.
The Division Plan Development digest a lot of this, any recommendations from or any
I
comment?
mean, we did a real quick look at it. We got it recently, so we did a quick look at it to see if there's anything that first we thought was an issue in terms of zoning that needed to be addressed, and there was nothing that we could see. It's a commercial use with, potential light industrial use, but most likely commercial type uses adjacent to one of our residential districts, but there's really no control that we have over that. And the traffic impacts are gonna be minimal. So we don't really have there was nothing from our perspective that needed to be addressed as far as traffic.
So they technically don't need a recommendation from us then?
No,
It's
they don't
just
need anything. Really, the notice is it's a requirement, but it's just
They submit it
to
to us, right?
engender regional discussion. Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you get the notice a couple of days before the meeting, but at the very least, get a crack at it and get a chance to look at it. Or the night of the meeting, for that matter, right?
Would you like me to bring that up at the next NEMCOG meeting, that we get more advance notice?
Because then we have to do it.
Then you have to, exactly. We have to reciprocate, that's correct.
So we don't need a vote? No, this is just for,
No, there's
Unless we have any major
no
concern?
action that's necessary. If there's anything that we could recommend, there's nothing that we saw. If there's anything that you noticed after really quick review that you felt was worth mentioning, we're happy to communicate that on the board's behalf. But if there's really nothing, there's no action necessary for it.
okay. All right, moving along, I know our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight, right?
Correct, it's 20th.
I've been informed, I think, that we have another rezoning coming in.
That's right, Westview Road, I think the address is 219 Westview.
Land
Yeah.
residential.
That's the one that, I know the council referred it to us, I saw it in the council.
Yeah,
the other
so
night.
many of you on the planning board are very, very familiar with this property. This is one that came through, I think it was a plan development special permit 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and was denied. Maybe a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, probably a little
And
longer
it was
now.
denied, there was an appeal, and the court upheld the board's decision on that. This is going to do is the developer is proposing a different process whereby instead of proposing a plan development special permit, they're proposing a rezone to residential, because a portion of that property is light industrial.
Right.
And then, following that, there would be a need for a definitive subdivision, potentially site plan review, definitely, Conservation Commission, because there's a couple wetlands crossings, so there's a notice of intent filing that would be needed. And from the sketch plan that I've seen, I don't believe there's any other relief or review requirements. But anyway, the rezone is to support a proposed residential development on the site.
I know Steve mentioned he couldn't be here at that meeting either. Everybody else plan on being here? Okay, so at least we'll have 4 of us here, right? Everybody? Okay.
And there is also one other project, it's Rock Street, Habitat for Humanity
Oh,
has a
that's a
proposal
Habitat,
for a 4-unit residential project.
Oh, yeah,
Rock
you mentioned
Street.
that to me before. No, what number is that on Mark?
I knew you'd ask. I think it's
That's okay. I remember we just-
49 to 55, I believe
That's
is.
to go into what? Residential homes, right?
Yep,
How
yep,
many? 4?
4.
Okay.
Right now, it's vacant space. It's,
Okay, that's right.
there was a building there where tons of cars were parked on it.
Yeah,
I think
so
it
it's a
was
vacant
body
space
shop.
and 4 residential units.
Yeah, with parking on site. We'll have the plans and application out to you soon, and then we'll have comments the week before the meeting.
Any board members have any questions or anything? No? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion's made.
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Yes, vote yes. We are adjourned. Good luck, and thank you, everyone. Did you get all the material, anything you need, Joe, from Division of Plan Development?
I got a bunch of material, and